Let me tell you a surprising truth about game design. Whether you're a dungeon master of tabletop like me, or a game designer of some sort, you'll probably want to hear about this, because I haven't heard it mentioned per se anywhere, and yet this is indeed something that I have noticed to be universal for any successful classic within gaming. It just permeates it all, and yet I heard no talk of it. Why? I do not know, but I can tell you today. All the great successes that have stood the test of time, that have either a following still after many years, maybe decades, or have still sequels coming out on the word of mouth alone, they have achieved this by having a certain sense of style. Now, which one is this, since we are talking about such broad categories all of the game? Well, there is something in common actually, even if you would think it impossible. The thing in common is that each and every one of these things, whether it's a long-running RPG series, whether it's a simulation series, all of the top ones, they have this in common. This style is, well, each of their styles, shall we say, is filled with explanation of what kind of activity and enjoyment and premise you can have within the game. And not just a simple explanation. It's a lot like having said more than you could possibly say with almost any kind of exposition, any kind of lore explanation, unless it lasted for years. No, the style is so strong that it just answers many questions as soon as it's seen. Like how we can say for Fallout, for example, why is it one of the most beloved post-apocalyptic type of settings? And why we can immediately recognize Ace Combat as the most popular, admittedly arcadey, but simulation genre game series. And so on and so forth. Because, as you well know from these examples, or similar examples to them, you can sort of recognize what are the good points, even if you almost don't know very much about it. As soon as you absorb a little bit of it through some trailers, through word of mouth, through just some rules and flavors of design of the world in question, you will then immediately know. For Ace Combat, you will know that it's a modern military warfare setting, but with surprisingly knight-like chivalry-filled behaviors of characters, with interestingly clean designs, with powerful super weapons, with sort of drama and romance that hits in the middle of the battlefield, and so on and so forth. You and more, you will know much more. This is not explanation enough. When you know flavor of Ace Combat, you know it better than any sort of few words of explanation of what the flavor is. Because it quickly reveals itself through the actions, through the motions, through the words of the characters. When certain small country gallant mercenaries appear and how they talk in Ace Combat and step forward to defend a flying fortress, all kinds of things happen that give you the tone and the flavor and stuff like that. So within possibly 1 minute, one glimpse, one trailer, one thing, you will get the feeling of how people within that world treat that world, and what do they do, how do they behave, and what are the fun activities in that world. This will immediately give the player the idea of why. Why would they care? Why would they care about your world? Why would they care about your game? Important thing for any game designer, even if you're a tabletop dungeon master. Because in the opposite case, where no clear payoff is had, whatever your thing may be, it is not dear to the player. They may watch your commercial, they may hear your world exposition, but they are not connected because you haven't given them that. You haven't given them the premise of why they would approve of it? Why would they say, yes, this is what I waited for all this time, what I wanted? You haven't given them that. So no matter how well written your world is behind the scenes, eventually maybe if somebody plays the full thing, if you haven't demonstrated this by your world breathing through its people, style of success, of why this world is fun and good to live in, and at least challenging in fun ways to live in, from how your people behave, what they think, how they act, what kind of philosophies do they demonstrate. If you haven't done that, then your player will not care. They have a large selection of what they could be doing with their time in their mind. Their imagination wants something beautiful, fantastic, glorious to imagine. They don't want to waste time on trivial tidbits. So your style of the world needs to speak for itself very loudly and very immediately. And it needs to speak about to the player. Player will need to have the following mental process. Do I want something from this? If you can answer that by your natural world's elaborate reactions to their own environment and situations. Yes, I know it sounds complicated, but that's how, the best, most beautiful things in gaming are done. If you can answer through natural world of yours the question that I just proposed, that the player wants to ask themselves, if you can answer it positively, very positively, then you have a classic on your hands if you pull it off well afterwards. You have now, planned it well from the lore standpoint, and now you need to just technically execute it. That's kind of one of the keys to everything in art of gaming. And then, in order to properly not have essentially false advertising or clickbait or however you want to call it, so that it's not that you had it once and then it was empty. You want that style, that stylishness to be permeating and ever present, stuffed full in your world, in your plane. You want in that plane of existence to have constant opportunities and constant themes of ability to act with such glorious stylishness of wonder, adventure, and success, the kind that you depicted at first. You don't want it to be a one-hit wonder of a moment. You want it to be a continuous, continuity of wonder. So that's what all the enduring hits in gaming, and I would dare say great campaigns in tabletop, what do they have in common is this. What great settings, great worlds have in common is this. This is how you would want to present world to yourself and then to the player, and how to focus your world building so it succeeds with full marks. So adventure, if you thought this was unique, maybe you can spare me a click and I could see you here next or even every week, because I really do have every week such content for you. I make it myself. And if you have some comments, I would love to hear them and respond to them, because life of a dungeon master is kind of a lonely one if he doesn't get enough attention. So, I'm M, and welcome to the DM table. Until next time, bye.